as the headline to the film proclaims, suggested by the story The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe, Julie Bishop, no less than Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. This is 1934, The Black Cat. Ever since the format has changed to recommend short reels, I've been doing a lot of 1-minute reels, sometimes for movies and shows I've already reviewed, doing a brief form. Now I'm trying to get time to do a long form and a short form of anything, especially if I watch it and I like it enough or it's important enough. So I already put up a short version of this, but I wanted to talk more at length. The incredible 1934 The Black Cat is a really shockingly modern sort of feeling movie. It has everything. It has the basic setup of the young, happily married couple on their way through the mountains of Eastern Europe, in this case headed through Austria on the Orient Express, no less, that most of us think of the famous Agatha Christie novel, but the Orient Express, the train rail that led to the mysterious lands of the Balkans and the mountains in the east. This for a long time is part of sort of European modern lore, to hop on the train and go to places mysterious through those forests and hills and mountains like Transylvania. So on the Orient Express, we meet the young newlywed couple that meet the creepy traveler who is headed home, well, allegedly, headed home after 15 years of being imprisoned in Russia after World War I. Keeping in mind, this is 1934. Not only was World War I the most global, destructive, infamous conflict in human history up till that point, it was still in recent enough memory that it is part of the contemporary culture. Returning after 15 years in a prison camp, finally making his way back to Austria, we meet a protagonist who is looking for revenge, or is it justice, against a man who betrayed his unit to the Russians in Austria 15 years before. We find that character having built a home for himself on the ruins of the old fortress at the very spot where he had betrayed his people to the Russians, where the valley had been filled with corpses and the river had run with blood. And so you have the modern structure on the hill, in the basement of which is the old fort structure, complete with the moving gun turrets that we will see and the almost medieval feel of it from before, and an incredible home built over it. There's also a love triangle. The commander who betrayed his own men and people was in love with the wife of the betrayer, of the one he betrayed. Ultimately, he has taken that wife who has died. He will take I'm not going to spoil too much of it for you. Needless to say, there are multiple love triangles, in a sense, within the film because of a multi-generational romance thing going on. So there's the betrayal of king and country, of Kaiser and country, they mention it, the betrayal of the men that he served with, the betrayal of stealing his family and his beloved, and he comes back for revenge, and we learn that this modern home has been built on the fortress, but those creepy basements are being used for satanic rituals. We have a character who is a satanic priest and is looking to sacrifice someone. There's a phobia of a black cat, which seems to be the only reason for the name of it, although you could insinuate a lot of things about creatures of the night, predatory instincts, poetically, whatever. We get these two men locked in this conflict over an innocent couple that is staying after a car accident, and the dynamic between these men, one knowing that the other has come for revenge, and he lets him know that he's there for justice, and the way their interplay happens and the creepy expectation of what is to come. It is so well thought out and well crafted, and while not directly taken really from any of Edgar Allan Poe's stories, it loosely related to The Black Cat, but also drawing on a lot of things that are recurring. There's some sense of the House of Usher and its fall, and many other things indicated with just the macabre, neo-Gothic way that they are presenting the ambiance and structure of the film. I think one of the most amazing things about how it feels so modern, though World War I is a long time away from us, the viewer, now, almost over a century since World War I, nevertheless, that idea of the returning from the war, the graphic way that it's described for that era, though clearly not shown or depicted, although we will get plenty of graphic depictions in this film. I thought the really outstanding, there's a science fiction element really in the home that is built by Pulzig over the fortress, the modern home, and Pulzig is now, the satanic priest is now, we know he's an architect. He builds this ultra-modern home that continues to look ultra-modern, retroactively, if that's a thing. There's a lot with the paneling and the direct lines and the way the lighting is done that is almost science fiction in nature, but is very reminiscent of what you will see by the late 60s and then especially in the 70s. There's quite a few scenes in that home that if you could see bright orange and yellow colors, you would swear the Brady Bunch was going to come in the room at any time. The idea of the mirrored panels, the squared away panels, the very flush doors, almost invisible doors, this whole ambiance of unusual lighting, the curved plasticky chairs, but with the metal frame. Everything about it is reminiscent of, you'd swear, well, they must have just made that in the late 60s or it's made in the 70s. No, it's 1934, and this is projected forward well enough. This is considered the ultra-modern, almost, again, futuristic look, and it still works. You look at it now, and you're like, and it adds to the unusual light sources, the unusual ambiance, and the immediate contrast. I mean, the stark contrast between the descriptions of the war, the aesthetic nature of the house, and yet the medieval feel of the sub-basement and the gun turrets, that connection with sinful, base, natural, fallen man versus the idealism of man who struggles to build, and yet in the satanic priest character played by Karloff, we get both of these features. He's an evil, controlling, diabolical person that lives in the bowels of this feigned sacrificing people, but he builds this ultra-modern facade of things that look progressive and futuristic and high-tech. Something to be suggested there about building an aesthetic future that really hides the utter corruption of our soul by emptying it of its godliness. In so many ways, it resembles Poe in theme, not in literal, having drawn on characteristics from Edgar Allan Poe, but also this whole theme of the struggle of, we are modern, intellectual, aspiring to be these rational people, especially at the time Poe writes, the time this film is filmed. But also we are people of the night, that when the sun goes down, we are dark, devious, lustful, evil creatures, and Poe always brought that out. And the film really brings that out, this duality of man seen in all of the characters in some fashion, and how it develops until a very, we don't see the graphic depiction of it, but there is a very graphic description of what's going on or what is about to happen in shadows when the satanic priest finally gets his comeuppance. And the bizarre thing for us as the viewer to see Boris Karloff fighting it out with Bela Lugosi and knowing who the good guy is and who the bad guy is, and yet both of them being these absolute paragons of horror and creatures of the night. For a movie its age, it is really, really, I can't rate it high enough as something that, despite its time period, is every bit accessible to us and our sensibilities. It is well done enough that it's as timeless as the Poe stories that inspired it. You got to go and check it out, The Black Cat.